Alexander County Veteran Service Officer, and today I am joined by Marshall Beard. Marshall, tell me a little bit about yourself, your date of birth, where you were born, and the community where you live.
July the 27th, 1923, and was raised in Hickory, and then I moved around places and wound up in Alexander County.
Okay. What did you do prior to joining the military?
Well, I worked in the furniture industry, Hickory manufacturing, for 35 years. And a supervisor over one department, shipping and all of that stuff. And then the war came along, and at 19 I was drafted.
Okay.
Went all the way to Massachusetts. And we traveled 4 days on a train from South Carolina and wound up at Cape Cod, Camp Edwards, Massachusetts. And there we were trained for shooting down low-flying objects like fighter planes. We practiced and practiced and practiced. And in the outfit that I got in, 385th Anti-Aircraft Artillery, we were trained on Cape Cod, Massachusetts for that purpose. There was, in the outfit was 5 batteries. Headquarters, which I was in, communications, and A, B, C, D batteries were doing the shooting, and the headquarters battery sort of oversaw the operation of the other batteries.
How did you feel about the military before you got in?
Well, I never did think about the military that much. And we were, a busload of us was taken from Catawba, Alexander, and Caldwell down to South Carolina to a little place, and I was 19, and the rest of them was that same age. And then it was about Christmas time, and they let us come back home for Christmas.
Oh, well, how nice.
And so we come on the same bus and stayed for Christmas, and then we went back. And from that little place in South Carolina, we traveled 4 days on a train. We knew nothing about where we were going.
They didn't tell you?
And had to turn all the lights out at night on the train because of the threat of a bomb or something like that. And we landed in a place, it was so cold we couldn't hardly get our breath, from being from the South. And while we were up there, it got down a lot of times 30 below.
So that was a little chilly.
Hard for Southern boys, I tell you can hardly get your breath.
And now you were in the Army?
Army.
Okay. What was your highest rank?
I was a corporal.
Okay.
And I'd done a lot of things that corporals don't do, but that's the way it was.
Good things or bad things?
Both.
Okay.
Yes.
How long did you serve?
The war ended for us in Europe, and we had been through 7 countries, counting the United States. We had traveled, we had a little Jewish boy in our outfit that kept records, and we didn't know he was keeping records.
Really?
He was keeping everything we ever done on paper. And after the war ended, he wrote a book.
Did he?
And published the book, and it was a great book. I never read it, but he had us going 208,000 miles over the United States and the 7 countries. France, Belgium, Holland, the Netherlands, on into Germany. We arrived in Germany and got within 65 miles of Berlin when the war ended for us. We got word, I think it was June the 15th, that the war was over, but everybody didn't know it. We were told when a German plane come over us now, we didn't shoot at it. Let it land at our airport. And that's what we did. And planes coming in, landing, and when the occupants got out, they threw down their guns, bayonets, whatever they had. They might be 5 or 6 people, and a lot of them high-ranking Army people. And they would lay everything down, and we would gather it up. Bayonets, guns, rifles, the whole works.
Did you bring any of that stuff home with you?
I did. I've got bayonets, and German Luger, several little items that. But when I was able to get out of the camp and come home before a lot of the others in the outfit because I had a child at home, a baby. And I know when they told me you can't have ammunition or they won't let you on a ship. Well, the ammunition I had with the guns, I put it, they told me where to put it. Some of the boys did. Said there's a board over here in this tent that you can raise up and put ammunition in there. Everybody's doing it because they told them they could get on a ship with ammunition. And I did that, and I bet there was 10,000 rounds of ammunition in there where the boys were throwing it in there.
So everybody knew about that.
Oh, yes, and they told me about that. And that's part of it.
What did you envision the military would be like after you joined?
Well, when you're in the military, you adapt to whatever's happening. If you walk 30-mile hike, you walk 30-mile hike, and I did that a couple of times. I adapted to it because I grew up in an uncertain way, a lot of it as a child. My mother died when I was 6, and so that put me in a bad light.
Where did you do your basic training?
The basic training mostly was in Massachusetts.
Okay, where it was so warm and you were so comfortable. What do you remember about basic training? Were you nervous, excited, or scared?
No, I never was scared. I just adapted to it very good. We traveled all the way from Massachusetts to Egland Field, Florida, and that's a long way with all the equipment we had on a big freight train. Trucks was on there too. We went to South Carolina for our basic training, and then we got on all of this equipment, trucks, and took a tour. They call it, whatever word for it, and went all the way to Egland Field, Florida, in those trucks, and took all the equipment with us, and saw a lot of stuff, rattlesnakes at night, and all that. And we were there to observe the new type of airplane. And that was our job, is to know what was happening. And that's when the jet plane was being perfected. And we observed that a lot. A plane would take off from that, and that's what we were down there for, to see what happens. And something would happen to that plane when it would go, without an engine sound.
Uh-huh.
And that's when they were trying to perfect the jet plane.
Right, okay. Do you remember any of your instructors, and if you do, what stands out about them?
Well, our cadre, that's what we called the people that trained us, a lot of them were from the north. And they went with us all the way, the rest of the trip.
Right.
But they were a lot of the boys from the north. And you could very distinctly tell who they were when they talked and this kind of thing. And they went overseas with us and everything from then on out.
Okay. Did you make any friends in the military, and do you still stay in touch with them?
Well, for 56 years we had reunions.
Okay.
We were out there, the war was over about 10 years, and some of the boys in western North Carolina up toward Asheville decided we had to have a reunion. And we met in a old hotel called the Hillbilly Inn. And there they had little cabins if you had a family.
Right.
The whole family could stay in a little cabin and be nice. And I had 3 little children, so that's what we did.
Okay.
And then we went, oh gosh, South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, New York, New Jersey, and had these reunions for 56 years, and the people began to get to where they couldn't come because of their health and so forth. And we wound up meeting in North Carolina, down towards Greensboro and around the area, for the last, I guess, 6 years of that 56 years. And we finally had to give it up.
Okay.
Because there's so many that was sick and couldn't come and too far from home.
Right. What did you think of your officers?
Fine, yes.
Okay. And your job in the military, you said that you were in the headquarters. What was your specific job?
Well, I got a job, even as a corporal. They wanted to find someone in the outfit that could go back to Paris and learn how to operate a radar that could be picked up and take with you. Radar mostly was a big building.
Right.
That would spot something coming in. I did that. They took me back to Paris, and I was there for 2 or 3 months and learned how to do that, and brought an outfit with me. They sent me with a truck that would do that. Then they gave me 3 boys. They were boys, you know, under 20 years old. That was in the outfit, and we were set up on a mountain in Belgium. And that little machine would tell you when something was coming with a little blip. And we lived there and had a tent that we ate and fixed our own meals. And we had a hole dug as deep as this building that we get in if something happened and they cut off the aircraft. So that's what we did.
Okay.
And then the Germans started sending what they called a buzz bomb into Belgium and hit the city targets, and it didn't have a pilot. It looked like a small Cub airplane, but a fire was coming out the back of it. But it had a bomb. It was just a big bomb.
Right.
And that was our job, was to follow those in, whatever, and report it to the gun headquarters. That was something was coming.
Right.
And we did that for months and months. And one day, we had a terrible thing happened. We had one cut off. The engine stopped running on that bomb. And it was just almost over our heads.
Oh dear.
And we reported it that there was a bomb coming, but it didn't have an engine running, so they had to take that into consideration, the guns.
Right.
And of course, we got in that big hole quickly. And and I received the Bronze Star for that.
Well, bless your heart. Was that the most memorable experience that you had, or did you have others?
Oh, well, too many. I could never tell you all the things. But that's the bad thing that could have happened.
Right. Did you have any casualties from your unit?
No, we didn't. You see, we were an outfit that didn't hand-to-hand combat at all.
Right, right.
We had a purpose.
And what weapons were you assigned to?
Well, we all had a rifle. And a bayonet and all that stuff. And we were allowed to bring some of that home with us.
What was everyday life like? Did you have enough to eat? Did you get warm meals at all?
Oh, yes. You get used to eating whatever you had.
Yeah.
Whether it was good or bad.
Okay. Where did you sleep, or where did you bathe? Did you sleep in a tent most of the time?
Oh, most of the time was in the tent. The time that we shot down the German fighter planes, we were in sleeping in a German barracks that they had vacated going back when we come through, you see. And that was the morning that it was 7 o'clock. I knew all that we heard firing. And that's when the German planes were coming over to strafe the airport. And they would shoot everything on there.
Right.
And that's when we shot down 7 out of 8 Messerschmitts.
Wow.
That was our best day.
How did you stay in touch with people back home?
Letters.
Okay. Did you ever get phone calls or anything like that?
Oh, no, we never get phone calls because we didn't know where we were.
Oh, okay. And how did you handle being away from home and from family?
Oh, I handled it well, I thought, because I grew up sort of alone, and it didn't bother me.
Okay. What did you do for fun or during your leave time? Or did you have any fun or leave time?
Oh, yes, before all the fighting started. See, we had to go to Camp Shanks, New York, from our basic training in Massachusetts. We were sent to New York at Camp Shanks, and we knew what was happening then. They told us that that's where you got off and go to Europe. So we had everything loaded, and it was at night. We were on an old ship called the Aquitania. We learned later that it was the sister ship to the Lithuania that was sunk in World War I by a torpedo. And of course we was on the boat and saw the light as we left, you know, oh glory. And we were, I think there was on that boat 8,000 people.
Wow.
It was a big old ship, and you was hung in a sleeper, 5 or 6 high. That's where you slept. And I think it was maybe 7 days we were on that ship.
Did you get seasick?
And yes, most everybody was seasick and eat crackers for a week. That's all you could stand. You know? And we heard shooting after about 7 days, I think. We heard gunfire. And of course, later we learned that it was a plane circling the area that we were in that time. And we found out later it was a jet plane.
Mm-hmm.
The Germans had they had got the thing going,
Mm-hmm.
but they had never put them in the Air Force, the German Air Force. That was a reconnaissance plane.
Right.
Reporting our position that we are in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And we felt all this stuff that we did about face, and instead of England, we wound up in Scotland.
Okay.
For that purpose.
Uh-huh.
And of course, we thank the good Lord for that.
Yes.
Because we knew who was guiding it.
Mm-hmm.
And we landed in Scotland, and we were there for 2 or 3 days in a warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were loaded on a train, the whole outfit.
Uh-huh.
And we wound up then in England,
Mm-hmm.
waiting on D-Day. We didn't know all that.
Right.
But we were waiting on D-Day.
Okay. Now, you said you received a Bronze Star. Did you receive any other awards or decorations for your time?
Oh gosh, there was a lot of them, little tinkering things, but I never regarded that as much as the
Bronze
real
Star.
Bronze Star.
Mm-hmm. Do you still have any of your uniforms or photos, mementos, or anything like that of your time in the service?
Oh yes, I've got the
All
old,
of your guns and your bayonets?
I've got those, and I've got an old outfit, you know, that's still hanging in the closet.
Okay. What was life like after the war, after you came home?
Well, you had to get used to being out of there, you know, out of the service. And I happened to be fortunate enough to go back to the job I had in the furniture industry.
Mm-hmm.
And there I stayed for 35 years, and in a supervisory position.
Mm-hmm.
And kids grew up in high school and so forth. And I participated.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had one boy that played football, and I was the announcer for the games.
Okay.
That kept me busy.
So now, did you get married while you were in the service or before you went into the service?
Before I went into the service.
Okay, and you said that you were released, was it early because you had a child?
That's right.
Okay, so how many children did you have?
3. That's what I had.
Okay.
And the child that was born while I was in the service, I was in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the boys from Hickory was, his parents run a store, clothing store.
Mm-hmm.
He came to me one morning and said, "You've got a little baby." He read it in the paper.
Oh, okay.
He got the Hickory Daily Record, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I said, "My goodness alive." And then I learned later, you know, but he said in the paper, "It shows you got a little child."
Well, so that's how you found out, not from family or anything?
That's right.
Like
It was from that boy.
Okay. Are you active, or do you belong to any veterans organizations? I see that you have your American Legion hat on. Are you a member of any others?
No.
Okay.
Just the American Legion.
Okay. Were any of your family members or ancestors in the military?
No, my son would have been drafted, but he had a bad hip playing football.
Uh-huh.
They turned him down.
Uh-huh.
And you asked me the question. Yeah, I have a son that went to Vietnam.
Okay.
And he went over there when he was just a child, practically.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he was drafted. And he was in an outfit that took care of helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
He had always been a boy that knew mechanics,
Right.
cars,
Mm-hmm.
from the time he was a child.
Mm-hmm.
And he restored a couple of cars.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, they took him to Vietnam as a replacement by himself. I never could understand that.
Mm-hmm.
They sent him from one plane to the other until he got to Vietnam.
Uh-huh.
And he told me they wanted him to be a gunner on a helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I refused it. And I elected and asked if I could be the mechanic
Mm-hmm.
on a helicopter. And they said, yes, you can do that, because he was good with mechanics.
Right.
And he and 3 other little boys, that's what they were, took care of 4 helicopters, kept them flying. And that's what he did. And luckily he got back home, and they let his wife come over there to see him. In that 3 or 4 years he was over there. And they give him a pass, and they went to Hawaii Islands or something there. And that was a real good thing. And I remember seeing him off when they sent him over there from the Charlotte airport.
Tough day for you.
It was terrible.
It was. I'm sure it was.
And I had no idea where he wound up, but that's what he did. And God took care of the rest.
That's right.
And he's had several bouts. He's had cancer a couple of times. And down at Salisbury, where the hospital is, he's had 3 operations, and he had to carry a bag for a year. And they finally took the bag away and put him back together down there, but then he got cancer. So he hasn't had an easy life.
Well, bless his heart. What would you say to the youth today if they were interested in the military?
Oh, I would have to say that it can be a good place to go and learn a lot of things.
Okay, do you have anything else you would like to share or that you would like to say?
Oh, I think I've said most of the bad and good things.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much for talking to us, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.